This desert wasteland was a turning point for Helena and her allies. It was here that her fellow explorer Rockwell began his spiral into darkness.
Well, you heard the lady, folks. Welcome to Scorched Earth, the desert wasteland that makes people slowly lose their minds. Uncle Bob has spent his entire life in sweet old Alabama and is clueless to surviving in the desert. He goes ahead anyway and does the basic Ark stuff of gathering stone, wood, and fiber, and then learning the basic engrams he needs to survive. Now, while exploring his new surroundings, he comes across these ruins that will serve as a waypoint to mark his location because he has no clue where he is. And then he sets about gathering resources. Next, he makes himself decent by putting on some armor and placing some storage boxes. Then he tries to knock out a friendly gerboa, but instead ends up killing it. Next, he finds a giant bug, and the simulation tells him to tap it to drink water, and yuck, somehow he drinks the bug's innards. And then he finds a max level ankylo, and he just doesn't have the tools to tame it. But he knows that when he does have the tools, max level ankylos will be nowhere to be found. However, the heat of the desert is not to be taken lightly, as Uncle Bob starts to overheat pretty quick. And to top it all off, he's also getting dehydrated. So he hurriedly places down the foundation and the bed in case he dies. He's obviously going to die. And eventually, he waits it, knowing the inevitable is approaching. And then he dies. This desert is going to be tough. However, he respawns because he was prepared for that. Respawns right next to his body and grabs all his stuff. Doesn't know why the body looks like it's epileptic on the floor, but we'll take the stuff and leave. No questions asked. Now he runs around trying to see what this new desert wasteland has in store for him. It's new because he's never been here before. So if it's not new to you, that's your business. While exploring, he finds a parasaur being chased by a pack of raptors, and keeping an eye on them, he creates as much distance as he can. The heat is bad enough, he doesn't want to have to deal with raptors, but the heat is just inescapable. Uncle Bob is parched and dying, and eventually his stamina gives out and he just has to stand still and burn to death. Even his bones break, and that's the end of Uncle Bob. However, it's not the end, because this is a simulation, and he dies again. And when he wakes up again, there's a sandstorm. And in a sandstorm, you can't run or regenerate stamina, so Uncle Bob is a sitting duck. But he tries to look on the bright side and gather some resources while the sandstorm rages, but the terror birds are having none of that, so they immediately dispatch him back to the lobby. This desert is slowly making him lose his mind. However, he respawns again, all the way at the ruins. And he has to slowly but surely make his way over to where his body is. Eventually, he gets close to the green obelisk and decides to make a respawn point because there's a body of water. So he places down a storage box to keep his inventory, and he goes forward to investigate. He runs into two gerboa, which this time he successfully knocks out. However, his joy is short-lived because as he approaches the lake, he's attacked by ants. And 2 seconds later, sure enough, Uncle Bob has been killed by the ants. Biggest L of the game. So he puts away what stuff he's managed to acquire in his storage box and he heads off again because he's not a quitter. But when he gets there, his gerbil are gone. And you can only imagine what happened to him. I don't know. But the terror birds are back and they are giving him a run for his money. Yup, Uncle Bob is putting in the leg day. But the terror birds are relentless. And try as he might, he cannot shake them. So eventually Uncle Bob perishes. There should be a death counter on this run because Scorched Air is so brutal. So I drop all my cosmetics and run off again to try and find my body. But this time Uncle Bob goes in the lake because the birds are coming for him. And putting the water in between them might save him. But once again, there's sheep just casually strolling through all the chaos. And when Uncle Bob jumps in the water again to swim across to the other side of the lake, he gets ambushed by prehistoric alligators who want him on their toast for breakfast. And sure enough, soon enough, Uncle Bob is on the menu. This time, because his bed is on cooldown, he respawns all the way out and has to run back to the green obelisk. He comes across some raptors being a nuisance to society and evades them. And then he spots a blue drop coming down from the sky, which he chooses to investigate. Yeah, it's nothing impressive, but at least he gets a free tent. And then he finds a tech parasol, level 130. Yeah, but he doesn't have anything to tame it either. Eventually he arrives back at the green obelisk. And he just scouts the area until he finds this giant dinosaur bone. Uncle Bob has seen a lot of dinos, but nothing with a ribcage that big. And once the heat gets him low, yup, the ants finish him off. It's scorched earth. Uncle Bob has accepted it now. The heat and the critters are teaming up to do numbers on him. But he wakes up and, undeterred, he returns to gathering resources. Then he finds a saber. And while Uncle Bob thinks he might be able to take this saber, no, he isn't. The saber takes him. When he respawns, he places his free tent and then checks it out before sleeping to skip the night. At least that's a quality of life feature. And then having his breakfast of 36 azelberries. He places down a mortar and pistol because he wants to start making narcotics and trying to get tames sooner rather than later. Especially if the terror birds will not leave him alone. But this time he bolas it. And guess who's having the last laugh now? He's turned a useless terror bird into useful hide. Talk about efficient. Then back to gathering resources. More and more narcotics are on the way, and quite a bit of sand and sap to make clay. Once again, he starts gathering. And then he finds the moss shops that wants giant bee honey to tame. Dude, we're in the desert. There are no giant bees here. What is this man on? And then he finds a tawny dragon that's managed to get itself stuck behind the wall. Either that or it's doing some serious Ghost Recon stuff. But then Uncle Bob finds some bones that he feels he can mine for salt. But while mining them, of course the ants show up again and Uncle Bob might be the only man in history to ever shoot ants with a bow and arrows. But a dub is a dub. He'll take it. Tired and thirsty as he is, Uncle Bob starts to use all those resources to start making a base. Finally, things are starting to look up. So he places some stone foundations and mixes it up with some adobe foundations. You know, Bob is not an architect. He's just a builder. And builders build stone boxes, basically. However, he runs out of resources and has to go gather them. The upside to living by the lake is he can just run down there and quench his thirst whenever he's thirsty. But he also spots another sheep. The sheep are just everywhere now that he has no use for them. But a little resource run later, and Uncle Bob has the stuff he needs to start placing adobe walls. So he places quite a few of them. And then he returns to mining bones. However, on this mining escapade, his pick breaks. But Uncle Bob is the definition of persistence, so he's not going to stop when his pick breaks. He's just going to fix it and keep on going. However, as Uncle Bob continues to mine relentlessly, a sandstorm begins. And yeah, he can't brute force his way through that, so he has to find some shelter. So he hightails it back to his base and takes shelter in his tent. Nice and cozy, if you ask me. When the storm is over, he places some preserving bins in his new stone foundation base and places a refining forge and a stone dinosaur gate frame. There, one half of the base is completed. Next, he starts doing some plumbing to get water up to his base so he doesn't have to run down to the lake each time he's thirsty. But once again, he runs out of resources, grabs some raw metal. It's not a lot, but it's raw metal. And soon he'll have ingot and will finally advance out of the Stone Age. After a brief nap, it's daytime, and Uncle Bob spots a yellow drop coming down in the distance. He can't skip on this, and so he sprints all the way there, and sure enough, it is the most cracked drop he's ever seen. 2 oil pumps, a journeyman saddle, free keys. That's what we're talking about. But making it back alive is a different story altogether. But fortunately, Uncle Bob makes it back alive and continues to finalize his base. Puts away the oil pumps in preparation for a later date. And then finally he finishes off his pipes. But then as the night falls, he spots another moss shark that simply wants mejoberries to tame. So Uncle Bob grabs some mejoberries and tames the guy up. And now he has his first tame. Please leave name suggestions in the comments and subscribe.